Welcome to Unbound, the podcast with Beth Curry, author, storyteller, and survivor. This is where books meet real life, where Beth reads chapters from her work and breaks free from the traditional audiobook format, diving deeper into the personal experiences, lessons, and liberation behind every page. Nothing is off limits. Let's get unbound.
Hi, welcome back to Unbound. I'm Beth. Before we get into today's episode, I need to give you a serious content warning. This chapter discusses medical assistance in dying, MAID, end-of-life decisions, and contains expressions of suicidal ideation. So if you're in a vulnerable place right now, this might not be the episode to listen to today. There's no shame in skipping this one and coming back when you're in a better headspace, or not at all. I want you to take care of yourself first. Okay, so for those who are still here, I just want to talk about something that nobody wants to talk about, but it desperately needs to be discussed. Chapter 24 in the book is called When Choice Fades, and it's about what happens when your mom looks at you with complete clarity and says, "Please kill me." Not in confusion, not in a moment of delirium, but with this full awareness of what she's saying and what she's asking for. And here's the fucking impossible part. She's right. She should have the choice to end her life with dignity, but by the time she recognized she'd reached the state she most feared, she could no longer legally make that choice. She was no longer legally qualified to make that choice. This is the cruel irony of dementia and MAID. The people who need it the most are often the ones who can't access it. So I want to talk about autonomy, about dignity, about what it means to watch someone you love trapped in a reality that they find unbearable but lack the legal capacity to escape. It's going to be hard, but it's important. Chapter 24, When Choice Fades. Please kill me. The words hang in the air between us, sharp and startling despite their increasing frequency. Mom's eyes, clouded by confusion most days, are suddenly clear with purpose. This isn't confusion speaking. This is lucidity breaking through, a moment of complete awareness about her situation. I wish I would just die, she continues when I don't immediately respond. This isn't living. How do you answer when your mother begs for an end you cannot provide? What words could possibly be adequate when someone you love is trapped in a reality they find unbearable, yet lack the cognitive capacity to legally change it? Before dementia entered our lives, I had a different understanding of MAID. My perspective was theoretical, philosophical, cautious. I believed in bodily autonomy and personal choice, yet harbored reservations about the practice itself, concerns rooted partly in my faith background, partly in abstract ethical questions I had the luxury of contemplating from a distance. Then I witnessed it firsthand. Someone I knew chose MAID as a way to escape a cancer that was killing them anyway. They wanted their final day to have dignity and coherence, and to spend it surrounded by people they loved. Seeing this experience transformed my understanding. What I had considered with intellectual reservation suddenly became real, human, and profoundly compassionate. I now understand MAID as a beautiful option under the right circumstances, a final exercise of autonomy, a way to write one's own ending. This perspective shift came through direct experience, through seeing how this choice could preserve dignity and agency in life's final chapter. Mom's pleas for euthanasia come from a different place. While my friend made their choice with full cognitive capacity, complete understanding of their options, and the legal ability to consent, Mom exists in a liminal space, moments of devastating clarity, punctuating longer periods of confusion. She understands enough to know she doesn't want to continue this way, yet lacks the consistent cognitive capacity required by law to make this choice. This is the cruel irony of dementia and MAID. By the time many people recognize they've reached the state they most feared and wish to avoid, they no longer qualify for the very option that might have spared them this experience. As of this writing, MAID legislation in Canada requires the person to be capable of providing informed consent at the time of the procedure. While advance requests for MAID after a dementia diagnosis have been debated, they aren't currently permitted. This means that someone might retain decision-making capacity until the very end, something dementia, by its nature, gradually takes away. I understand the reasons for these safeguards. They protect vulnerable people from potential abuse, ensure decisions aren't made under duress, and confirm the choice remains consistent over time. These are necessary precautions, yet witnessing Mom's distress, her horror at her own declining function, her awareness during lucid moments of how far she has fallen from the dignified, articulate woman she once was, I can't help questioning whether these protections sometimes become a different kind of cruelty. I wouldn't want to live this way, she told me clearly during one of her more lucid days early in her diagnosis. Promise me you won't let me become... She trailed off, unable to articulate exactly what she feared, yet the meaning was clear. She didn't want to lose herself, her dignity, and her essence. But this is precisely what's happening despite her clearly expressed wishes, despite my promise, a promise I now realize I lack the legal means to keep. The woman who once took immaculate care of her appearance now sometimes wears clothes mismatched by well-meaning but hurried staff. Some days she doesn't wear her bra, and at times, like a toddler, she will lift her clothes. Her hair sometimes is not brushed, her hands are not always clean. The educator who measured her words carefully now swears at strangers when frustrated. The counselor who guided countless people through life's challenges now cannot navigate her own daily routine without assistance. During her moments of clarity, she recognizes how profoundly she has changed. This isn't me, she'll say, distressed. I wouldn't do these things. I wouldn't say these words. The mortification in her eyes when she realizes she's been inappropriate or confused is perhaps the hardest thing to witness, this proud, dignified woman catching glimpses of who she has become. I understand completely her desire to exit before further deterioration. If I faced the same prognosis, I might well wish for the same option. The fear of losing oneself while physically remaining, becoming a person unrecognizable even to yourself, ranks among the most profound human fears. Yet our current systems offer no path for those who would choose to leave before cognitive decline robs them of the legal capacity to make that choice. This is not a political statement or an argument for changing legislation. It's simply the reality we face, a deeply personal illustration of how our most crucial choices sometimes arrive too late, how autonomy can slip away before we have the chance to exercise it one final time. Mom, I understand, I tell her when she begs me to end her suffering. I hear you. It's all I can offer. Acknowledgement of her pain without false reassurance, recognition of her autonomy even when it cannot be legally exercised. I don't dismiss her pleas or try to convince her she should want to continue. Sometimes I do try and end the discussion. It won't go anywhere anyway, and it does upset me. I don't want to lose her completely yet. I don't tell her things will improve when we both know they won't. I simply try to witness her truth, holding space for her anguish, without trying to diminish or redirect it. In these moments, I often think about how we treat our beloved pets with more mercy than we sometimes allow our human loved ones. When an animal suffers without hope of recovery, we consider euthanasia a compassionate choice, a final act of love that prevents unnecessary suffering. Yet for humans, even those who clearly express their wishes while capable, we often have no such option. There are no easy answers here, no simple solutions. The ethical questions surrounding end-of-life choices in dementia are profoundly complex, balancing autonomy against protection, individual wishes against societal safeguards. I don't pretend to have resolved these tensions, either philosophically or emotionally. What I can offer is simply this truth. Watching someone you love beg for a merciful end they cannot legally choose is its own kind of suffering. Knowing what they would want, what they explicitly told you they would want, yet being unable to honor those wishes creates a moral injury that accompanies you through each decline, each indignity, each moment of distress. There are still beautiful moments with Mom, still connections that go beyond her cognitive decline. Music still reaches her, touch still comforts her, certain memories still bring her joy. I treasure these moments, preserve them carefully in my heart against the harder times. But I also honor her truth when she tells me this isn't the life she would choose. I validate her feelings when she expresses that she's had enough. I acknowledge that her desire for an end isn't depression or confusion, but a rational response to her circumstances, the wish to conclude her story with the dignity that defined her life. In these conversations, I found an unexpected intimacy. When I stopped trying to redirect her or cheer her up, When I simply sit with her in the truth of her experience, something profound happens. She feels seen, perhaps for the first time in months. The pretense falls away and we meet each other in absolute honesty. I know, Mum, I'll say, holding her hand. I understand why you feel that way. I would feel the same. Relief floods her face at being believed rather than dismissed. Something eases in her posture, as if the acknowledgement itself provides a momentary comfort. We sit together in this shared understanding, this mutual recognition of her reality. These are sacred moments, painful but genuine. In a journey increasingly characterized by confusion and disconnection, these raw conversations offer a different kind of connection. We cannot change her circumstances, but we can face them together without pretense or false comfort. For those walking similar paths, I offer no solutions, but a few reflections that have helped me navigate these difficult waters. First, allow space for these expressions without judgment or immediate redirection. When someone expresses a wish to die, our instinct is often to contradict or distract. Sometimes a better response is simply, I hear you. Tell me more about how you're feeling. This validation doesn't endorse suicide or hasten death. It acknowledges the very real suffering behind such statements. Second, remember that listening is not agreeing. You can hear someone's wish for death with compassion without promising to fulfill it or endorsing their view. Sometimes people simply need their suffering witnessed, acknowledged as real rather than minimized or dismissed. Third, these conversations offer opportunities for meaningful connection when you move beyond platitudes. Instead of, don't say that, or things will get better, try, what's the hardest part right now? Or how can I help make today a little more bearable? These questions honor their experience while potentially identifying specific interventions that might help. Fourth, consider discussing future wishes early, when your loved one still has full capacity. These conversations are uncomfortable but necessary. What would they want if their condition deteriorates significantly? What would constitute an unacceptable quality of life for them? Having these discussions while they can clearly express their preferences helps ensure their values guide future decisions and can bring peace of mind to both of you. These moments of honest dialogue, though difficult, often become some of the most meaningful exchanges we share with those we love. They require courage from everyone involved, but they honor the full depth of human experience, including its most challenging aspects. Sunshine warm, birds sing sweet. Tea is hot, cake is neat. Pictures bright, flowers too. Today is good. I smile for you. Kathy Downey. Impromptu poem transcribed from a voice recording, November 18th, 2024, when Mum sensed I was having trouble with her expressing not wanting to live like this. Alrighty, so there are sentences that you never forget, not because they're dramatic, but because they split your life cleanly into before and after, right? My mom's version is simple. You heard it at the start of the chapter. Please kill me. It's the clarity that guts me, not the confusion or the agitation. It's clarity. And I do want to say, in the past year, these conversations have basically not even happened again, which has been a comfort to me for sure. But yeah, not confusion, not agitation, clarity, like this rare kind of terrible lucidity that cuts through this fog long enough for her to kind of see her own decline. And, it's long enough for her to understand exactly where she is and remember that she never wanted to be here in the first place. And when someone you love looks at you straight in the eye and says, I don't want this anymore, you learn pretty fucking quickly that there are questions for which no answers exist. I keep coming back to my own journey with MAID, and, I apologize for getting emotional, but I don't apologize either. Years back, my reservations were theoretical, I had concerns, the ones you only get to have when life hasn't yet cornered you. And then, someone I knew chose MAID with full clarity and full courage, absolutely full courage. And it changed everything for me. Watching them leave on their own terms didn't feel dark or tragic at all. It felt profoundly human. It showed me that autonomy at the end is a beautiful form of mercy. When dementia enters the picture, though, everything has to shift. It does, because this I don't know, the clean philosophical lines really blur, and my mom lives in this in-between place. She has enough clarity to know she doesn't want to go through this, but not enough to meet the legal threshold anymore to make the choice that she would have made um, without hesitation 2 years ago. And this was in the media recently, and I wrote about it. Robert Munch is going through this and made the choice. But, his family reassured everybody that he's doing well right now. And this isn't happening now, but this is a choice that he made, and he made it in time. And I think that's amazing. Um, but yeah, like 2 years ago, like uh, mom would have, I don't know. I don't know what would have happened, before she really started to decline. The heartbreak lives there in that gap between who she was and who she's become, and between what she wanted and what the law now says she can't have. And like I said, I understand the safeguards. I understand why they're there. But it doesn't ease the experience of watching her suffer in the exact way that she feared most, you know? People don't really often talk about the moral injury that this creates for caregivers either. That feeling of failing someone even though you're following the rules. It's an impossible position to be in, being their witness but not their advocate in the way that they would want. You're left kind of carrying the grief of what's happening to them and the guilt of being unable to protect them from it. It's shitty. The hardest part, isn't the daily decline. It's these flashes of awareness, too. The moments when she catches herself doing or saying something she would once consider unthinkable. When she looks down at clothes that she wouldn't have been caught dead in, or hears a harsh word come out of her mouth, although she kind of sometimes does that with a smirk on her face now, like a naughty little kid swearing at mommy. I watch the horror land, though, when she doesn't mean it. She sees herself slipping away in real time, and that's when she would say it. That's when she would plead. And what do you say to that? Like, what in the hell are you supposed to say to that? I certainly don't know. But I've stopped pretending. I don't offer like any kind of empty hope or forced optimism. I tell her I hear her and I understand. And sometimes that tiny moment of recognition, like I said, the chance to kind of speak honestly without me rushing to patch it all up, it just brings her more peace than anything else that I could say. It doesn't fix anything, but it kind of meets her where she is. And that's something I wish more people understood, that there's some intimacy in these brutally honest conversations. When you stop trying to rescue someone from their own truth, you meet them in a place that's deeper and more real than any version of caregiving you ever imagined. And yes, it's painful. It really is, but it's also sacred. It's a final, fierce form of connection, if that makes sense. I've also learned too, over the years, actually, and not only with my mom, that when someone says that they want to die, it doesn't always mean they want to die. Sometimes it just means I'm scared, or I'm tired, or simply I know myself well enough to recognize that this isn't me anymore. And I think that the kindest thing you can do in those moments is just create space for them to say it without shutting them down. With mom, there's still moments of light, music, touch, all these little pockets of joy, but there's also this haunting truth about how we extend mercy to our pets without hesitation. We had to do that earlier this year with one of our cats. It was the first time that I ever experienced it firsthand. I've lost a lot of pets over the years, but not through my decision. And it was awful, but you know what? It was also really, really peaceful. I don't know, but when it comes to the people we love the most, our compassion is held behind layers of policy and fear and bureaucracy. And I don't know the answer. I'm not campaigning for policy change in this chapter or at all. I'm just kind of acknowledging the reality that so many caregivers quietly carry. In the middle of all this heaviness, there are moments I don't forget, like, that little poem, the sunshine, the birds, the tea, the flowers. It was really, really cute. Like, just watching her do that, because she saw how much her words were hurting me. So she brought me these adorable words in rhyme, and she was mom, she was mom. Like, even in the middle of her own despair, she reached for something gentle to hand back to me. that's who she's always been, It's who she still is underneath everything that dementia has taken. I think that's why this is hard, She's asking me to let her go, but she still finds ways to comfort me from the middle of her own suffering. Oh man, it's shitty. Whew. I wish I had a conclusion here. I wish I could offer clarity or certainty or a clean, hopeful ribbon to tie around all of this, but I can't. I just have the truth of, if you're caring for someone who expresses these wishes, you're not alone. You're not doing it wrong. It's simply what it looks like when love collides with limits, So all we can do, like I said, is sit with them and hear them and validate these pieces of their experience that can still be validated and carry the rest with as much grace as we can manage, right? It's not enough, but it's what we have. So anyway, before I wrap up, I just want to thank by name some people here: Kyle, Chris, Karen, Bill, Jimmy, Alana, and Howie for supporting the show this week on Coffee. Your support literally makes this possible. Thank you. I'm giving this work away for free because I believe these stories need to be accessible. But there are real costs: hosting, audio engineering, time, background players. If you've gotten value from Unbound, please consider supporting at ko-fi.com/Unbound podcast. You can donate once, any amount, or subscribe and do it monthly. Every coffee keeps it going, but absolutely no pressure. This is free. It will always be free. Yeah. So that's it. Thanks for listening to this episode. If you did, if it brought up some difficult feelings, please reach out to someone. You can check out the show notes for any contact and support information. I'm here if you want to join the Facebook group for discussion or to send me an email. I'm here to chat if you want, and I'll see you in the next episode. Take care of yourselves.
Thanks for listening to Unbound with Beth Curry. Join the conversation in the Facebook group or visit authorbethcurry.com. Want to support the show? Head to ko-fi.com/Unbound podcast. Until next time, stay unbound.